Hi and welcome or welcome back. Recently, I've stumbled into the oil pastels corner of YouTube and I found them interesting enough that I wanted to give them a try as well. Among other YouTubers, Evie Draws has been the one that really got me interested in this medium. So if you don't know her yet, please check her out. I did a bunch of research first about which kind of supplies to get. So the big box that I have here, which doesn't fit into my camera frame, is the 72 set of oil pastels from Sennelier. These are said to be some of the best oil pastels, very pigmented, but unfortunately also quite expensive. I paid 112 euros for this set from an art supply store in Spain, which was still 20 euros cheaper than my local art supply store. So here is the booklet that's included. On the back side, there is a printout of their full range of 120 oil pastels, including information such as the pigment numbers, transparency, and light fastness. This is super helpful information, and I'm glad that Sennelier included it, so I don't need to go look for this information. Now, these oil pastels are also available in wooden boxes. Of course, those are even more expensive. So this is just a cardboard box and it comes with this foam cover. And here is what an oil pastel looks like from Sennelier. Each of these are wrapped in paper and there is the number of the oil pastel on the top and bottom. The pigment information is also listed here again. It's just really hard to read. And the paper also has little perforated lines, so you can sort of peel these oil pastels as you use them up. And lastly, you also get the name of this oil pastel again at the bottom. Since I don't really know much about oil pastels, I have no point of comparison. I won't be calling this a review, but rather a first impression. I'll be swatching these on some Clairfontaine mixed media paper called PaintOn. They have several different versions of this paper. This one is the grainy textured surface. I heard that your fingers are actually the best tool to smudge oil pastels and blend them out. But at the same time, not all pigments are safe for your skin. So I read online that you should get a barrier cream to protect your hands from any kind of toxic pigments. The one I have here from Winsor Newton has a very thick, almost paste-like consistency. As an alternative to smudging with my fingers, especially for some finer details, I got these paper stumps and some sandpaper to sharpen them or remove the pigment from them. After you finish the painting, I also read about how to store it. I already have a fixative spray for dry media, and then I read that it would be best to store these paintings with a cover of glassine paper to make sure that the pigment cannot get rubbed off. And I found some cardboard with a glassine cover that's intended for photo storage. I figured this would work just as well. And an A4 size paper fits just right into this. I won't show you all of the swatching, just a quick note about how soft these pastels are. This is what this pastel looked like after doing this small swatch here. I'm glad I swatched these because there are some discrepancies between the printed color chart and the actual appearance of these oil pastels. Also, the pastel that I'm holding on top here looked significantly darker than its actual swatch. Now here are all the swatches of my set of 72. You can see that most of these are transparent or just semi-opaque. They do not completely cover my black line in the middle. Generally speaking, I'm very happy with the color selection. There are a bunch of similar looking colors among the blues, but if I'm ever painting a big sky, I might enjoy having these many options. I also like their selection of greens. There's a lot of variety here. And I also really like the selection of browns and earth tones. There are a bunch here that will look great for skin colors. And I think the selection of grays here is very fascinating. So lots of very vibrant colors to choose from. I decided to try and paint some sunsets first, to really get the most out of these vibrant colors and familiarize myself with this medium. The paper that I'm using here is an A5 sized paper from Clairfontaine again. It's the PaintOn series. This block features different paper surfaces and colors. The paper that I'm using here is the grainy paper, the same as the one I did my swatches on, and I'll be using one of the smooth ones later. You can see me try out a variety of techniques here, including using the paper stumps and occasionally using the paper stumps to scrape off a little bit of pigment from the oil pastels to apply them to the paper selectively, and also using my fingers to blend these oil pastels. This first painting, or is it a drawing if it's not wet? I don't know. This first artwork took me longer than the other one. I think I just had to get used to it and figure out how to work with these. But I found it quite nice to blend these oil pastels into each other. I even tried using some colored pencils and colored pastel pencils on top, which didn't quite work that well because it just tended to scrape the paint off. I'm very happy with how this first one turned out. Next up, I wanted to try these again on smooth papers. So this is the gray PaintOn paper. And I think, generally speaking, I prefer smoother paper for this medium. On the grainy paper, I struggled a bit to cover up the grain of the paper and make sure no white spots would be left. And everything just seemed to blend a bit smoother on this. This second painting went by in a breeze. Maybe I was just more familiar with these. I also started using my fingers more. I think I'm beginning to see why everyone is saying that this is the best way to blend these. I am also very happy with how this one turned out, although in hindsight I wished I'd pushed the vibrancy of the orange clouds a bit more, made them a little bit brighter. It looks completely fine on its own, but when I put it side by side with the first one, the colors in the first one just look a little bit nicer and punchier. But I do love the effect of the border of this grey paper around the painting. So here are both of my first attempts side by side. I'm going to start with the more textured one, give you a close-up of what it looks like. You can still clearly see the grain of the paper. I love the vibrancy of these oil pastels and how nicely I could layer them like the grey and the orange on top of each other. And here is the smooth paper for my second painting. You can still get a bunch of texture if you do not smooth out the oil pastels. You get little dotted clouds. This does leave a royal mess. You can see my tissue paper over on the side. I sprayed them with a fixative afterwards to make sure that the pigment wouldn't rub off even when in storage here behind these glassine covers. Now I'm glad I left a little border around these because these barely fit. The glassine cover is just slightly shorter than the cardboard backside. I added some photo corners later to make sure that these wouldn't move around accidentally and maybe rub off some pigment while doing so. These are basically little plastic sleeves. They have a sticky backside that you put inside a photo album, and then you can just slide your pictures in there, and that's a very nice way of non-permanently attaching your photos or your artwork to something. I do like this way of storing artwork because I can still see what's inside through the glassine cover. And once I have more oil pastel work done, I can put all of these in a binder. So these are my first two paintings in oil pastels. What do you think, and which one do you like more? Have you tried oil pastels yet? I would love to hear from you in the comments. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye!